All right. Well, we're back at the podcast, and it's weird. Like, I'm kind of the host because Will and Austin aren't here, so I kind of have to drive a little bit. But I'm here with Myron. Myron, have you been on it before?
I have not. This is my first time.
Oh, well, it's a special place for sure.
I'm super excited.
If you don't know, Myron's our community group's pastor, and he kind of helps people get connected to one another. And so he does all that behind the scenes and in front of the scenes too. But the other thing that he does is he does finances, right? You do kind of help people with personal finance. And so it's great to have you on the podcast as we've been talking about overflow and generosity, talking about the tithe and the benefits of giving and tithing this last Sunday. So I just wanted, Myron, would you share a little bit of that part of your ministry of connecting people about finances and maybe where you start with people when you sit down with them talking about, how things look on their paychecks and stuff?
What I want to do is I want to talk about how it started with me. I grew up in a Christian home. I did the typical thing where mom would give me some money and I'd put it into the plate, and learning that little thing when you're a kid, just how to give. But it really didn't take like a place in my heart until I got into college and I was living on my own. And then all of a sudden I got an urge to give some money to another student who was going on a missions trip. And for me back in those days, I was a struggling college student. I didn't have a lot of money. And so for me to give up $50, for this student to go to a missions was a big thing. And so I gave that 50, and I really felt like that was my first step of faith, I think, financially. Now, fast forward, Bernie and I, we got married, and we were attending a church, and we got recruited to be on the counting team for the offering. And so there was an elder there that kind of cornered us and challenged us. He asked us if we were giving, tithing. And we reluctantly, said no, because we were just newly married, finances were tight. And he said, I really want to challenge you to do that. And so we decided, okay, the dollars didn't match up. We looked at our budget, and the budget said we couldn't afford it.
Right.
And so we took a step of faith. We're like, okay, we're going to try it this month. And so we did, and somehow it worked. That was the weird thing. That was our first kind of faith step as a couple where we had to look at it, and we're like, this doesn't make sense. Why is this working? Because the budget didn't say that it should work. And so we continued to do that faithfully and continued to tithe, and God just blessed us. Now, here's the strange thing about that. That act of giving freed us. Mm-hmm. It released us to be free with our finances.
Yeah.
And so, you fast forward, and I got into financial planning. And really my vision for getting into financial planning was to help people experience that same freedom. So I got mentored by a guy who was all about charitable giving and planned giving and helping people who had accumulated kind of a large amount of money and making sure that they understood that giving was a part of wise stewardship,
right?
Wise financial planning. And it was really about getting people free. So often people, they get, a certain amount of money, and it becomes the thing that they focus on. And
right.
I use the analogy, if you like the Incredibles, it's that scene where Mr. Incredible, he gets in there to, I forget the name of the computer, and he walks down that long aisleway, and then he trips the thing and it raises an alert, and all of a sudden these guns start coming out and they pepper him with the black balloons.
Yeah, slow him down.
And And that's what I feel like sometimes finances, that's what it becomes. It's like
It's a weight.
it's a weight, it sticks to you. And if you don't know how to get free from it, it just immobilizes you and you can do nothing.
It sneaks up on you too, right? Like you don't
Right.
even really notice that it's weighing on you.
That's right.
Right.
And the more things that we accumulate, in Western society, we love to accumulate things, whether it's the car or the home. As soon as you acquire the home, now you got to maintain it and you got to take care of it. And all of the subsequent expenses, they just end up being these things that you constantly focus on that weigh you down. And so helping people get a mindset on getting free from those attachments, that keep them from getting bogged down, and allow them to live freely in their relationship with God for the purposes that He's called them for. That's why I do financial planning.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that we've talked about these last couple of weeks is that our finances aren't even ours.
Yeah.
So when we start giving or living generously, or we start engaging God in the process and turn it into a spiritual activity versus something we even have to manage, and we invite God into that process, we're inviting him into something that he's already a part of, whether we've acknowledged him or not.
Yeah. We use the term stewardship,
Right.
And implied in that term is the fact that we know that it's not our money. It really is God's money, and we become just the steward of the resources that He's given us. And as much as we can to release that, what many people perceive as ownership,
It's mine.
that's the key. It's mine.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we hold on to it with that tight fist. And the big thing is, I try to encourage my clients, you got to release it. You got to let it go. Otherwise, it owns you.
Right.
So,
yeah, I think we used two illustrations or two pieces of scripture this last weekend to illustrate some of these ideas. The first was the rich young ruler in Matthew comes to Jesus and has a great spiritual question. What must I do to inherit, the kingdom?
Yeah.
And Jesus, knows this young man. I don't know that he searches his heart. Maybe he just recognizes who he is, and maybe by the way he's dressed or the way he carries himself or his reputation tells him he needs to you've done a lot of things great. You need to let go of your wealth and your possessions. So that was the first person. And then the other example that we used is the widow with, 2 pennies to her name, and she gives out of, her poverty to show her releasing of the things that God has given to her. And it's these two people that you think one would be more, doable than the other.
Yeah.
Just because, if you have nothing, it's hard to give from that. But the reality is a lot of times when we have a lot, or we seem to have a lot, it's hard to give from that perspective as well.
It's really, so I've been doing financial planning for 23, 24 years now. And the mentor that I worked with in the past, he worked with some ultra high net worth people, hundreds of millions of dollars. And they would develop strategies for those individuals to show them how to save their money, but also give it toward things that they wanted to give it towards, rather than giving it to the U.S. government.
Yes.
And which is the largest charity in the world.
Right.
So, but the biggest thing that they found was they would develop these plans for these ultra high net worth people. And when it came to the end where they were getting ready to sign the dotted line to give up control of the money, that's where they would stumble every time. And it was hard for them to let go, even if they had hundreds of millions of dollars, and in some cases billions of dollars, they just couldn't sign the dotted line to let it go.
Yeah. And again, it sneaks up on you. You don't realize you're holding on to it. You would think that I don't want it to go to the government would be the thing, right? Like I want it to go to a charity that I believe
Right.
in. I want to see that money work in a right direction. In fact, our whole culture right now over the next probably 5-10 years is going to go through they call it a great wealth transfer.
Yeah.
It's like an asset transfer.
Right.
And a lot of people are trying to make choices of making sure that, they're able to give those, those dividends or, those taxes, that they're able to donate those to other people or to charities, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Giving towards God's work, it's an act of faith. Ultimately, that is the bottom line. And he wants us to be in that faith relationship with him, to live in dependence upon him rather than money.
Right.
Otherwise, money becomes our idol,
Yeah.
and it becomes the thing that we end up worshiping, and it controls us. So,
Yeah. We want you to experience freedom from sin, freedom in Christ, and freedom in our finances, in your finances. And so this has been a challenging series for us. It's not an easy topic for us to preach on or to teach on, but it's so important for us to be reminded of these values because they're God's values, and God is the one that is taking care of us, and we want to handle our finances in a godly way. And so we hope that this series is a blessing to you. We have one more week to go in it, and then we're going to move on towards Easter here pretty soon. So it's an exciting time at Community Christian. We hope to see you at one of our campuses, maybe on a Thursday night. Thursday night's the way to go. And we will see you soon. God bless.
God bless.